I am 30 weeks pregnant, facing serious complications that have me confined to bed. Every breath I take is a struggle to protect the tiny life growing inside me. My doctor's orders are clear and strict. No standing up, no exertion, only quick trips to the bathroom. Everything around me feels frozen in a suffocating silence, filled with overwhelming fear and uncertainty. Then my husband's phone rings. It's his mother, sobbing uncontrollably, speaking of sharp chest pains that could claim her life at any moment. It might be a heart attack, she screams through the phone, a desperate plea for help. My heart stops. My husband freezes. Then, driven by love and duty, he chooses to abandon me, vulnerable and terrified, to speed off on a 6-hour drive to her side. I lie there, utterly alone, every second stretching into an eternity. I call hospitals near her home, searching for any sign that she was admitted, but find nothing. No records, no emergency visits. A text from my husband later confirms what I feared. She's fine. Never went to the hospital. But the full story unravels beneath the surface, a cruel, heartbreaking charade. My mother-in-law wasn't suffering as she claimed. She was lonely and needy, weaving a tale of crisis to manipulate her son into dropping everything, including the safety of his pregnant wife.
To come to her aid.
When confronted, she admits to exaggeration, blaming her anxiety and fear, but the damage is done. The trust between us all has been broken. Have you ever been forced to choose between two emergencies? Between love and duty, fear and betrayal? When someone exploits your heart, is forgiveness even possible? This isn't just a story about a false alarm. It's a story about betrayal, boundaries, and the fierce determination to protect yourself and the life you carry. Against all odds, join me as we walk through the raw, painful emotions, from fear to anger, from heartbreak to healing. This is a journey every family might face, and the question remains, how do we rebuild when the ones we love hurt us the most? The room was silent except for the soft, measured breaths of a woman caught in the cruel grip of pregnancy complications. At 30 weeks, she lay confined to her bed, every movement forbidden, every breath deliberate. The doctor's strict words echoed in her mind. No standing, no exertion, only the slightest trips to the bathroom. No cooking, no driving, her world reduced to this bed, this fragile existence tethered to the hope that her baby would survive. Inside her, the baby stirred gently, unaware of the turmoil outside. But she felt every ache, every flicker of fear that this next moment, this hour, this day, could shift everything. Her body was a battlefield. The strain of carrying life while battling high blood pressure and early contractions left her physically broken and emotionally raw. She was alone in a house hushed by strict bed rest, her husband her sole lifeline. His presence was a balm, but also a thread of tension, a tightrope they walked daily. She saw the exhaustion in his eyes, the weight of responsibility bending his shoulders. Cooking, cleaning, helping her to the bathroom, he was everything. Yet, behind her gratitude lay a growing fear. What if something took him away from her? That fear festered in the darkest hours of the night, fueled by memories of the past. Her mother-in-law, a complicated figure lurking on the periphery of their lives, was a source of quiet unrest. Living 6 hours away, she was known for her neediness, the calls that pulled her husband away at inconvenient times. The gentle murmur of, "I have no one else," which often masked a demanding insistence. On this particular morning, as sunlight pierced the blinds, a call shattered their fragile peace. The mother-in-law's voice cracked with panic, chest pains, a possible heart attack. Her husband's hesitation was immediate, caught between the woman who might be dying and the wife who was already fighting for 2 lives under strict medical orders. His face drained of color, his phone pressed tightly to his ear. The internal battle was palpable. She, hearing the urgency in his voice, felt her world tilt. He needed to be there for her, yet was suddenly called away for another. The helplessness that engulfed her was profound, like being stranded in a storm without a life raft. Neighbors came to check in, offering brief moments of comfort, but none could fill the void left by his absence. Each tick of the clock was an echo of her isolation and fear. She was tethered not just to her bed, but to a heartache deeper than physical pain. The anxiety that maybe the one person she depended on would not return. Meanwhile, unseen dynamics unfolded behind this high-stakes scene. The husband wrestled with his own emotions, his sense of duty to his mother, his love for his wife, and a gnawing frustration at the impossible choice carved out by circumstances beyond control. His own mother's history of crises and fabrications painted the moment with uncertainty and suspicion, deepening the conflict. As she languished in bed, the emotional storm inside her swelled, trust strained like a fragile thread, loyalty tested, and love stretched across distance and doubt. The scene was set not just for a confrontation with illness, but for an unraveling of family bonds tested to their breaking point. This intimate struggle between bed rest, betrayal, love, and endurance marks just the beginning of a story that delves into the rawest edges of human emotion and resilience. As the day unfolds, the next chapter will reveal the unspooling truth behind the call, the reality waiting 6 hours away, and the complicated choices that will redefine this family's future. Stay with us as we dive deeper into the twists of loyalty, deception, and the fight to protect both body and heart. The story doesn't begin with the emergency call. It is rooted, deep in the past, in countless moments of quiet tension and unresolved needs. My mother-in-law, a woman who lives 6 long hours away, has always been a complicated thread woven into the fabric of our lives. She is a widow, alone in her house, and with that solitude comes a heavy, persistent need for attention and assistance. Not the kind you ask for once in a while, but a constant, almost desperate demand that has worn down the boundaries of our family for years. She calls often. At first, it was for small things. A minor headache, a computer glitch, a few groceries needing to be picked up. But these calls became predictable patterns, cries for emergency that often deflated into everyday inconveniences. I remember the time she called my husband, tears thick in her voice, saying she was bedridden with unbearable back pain. My husband, always willing to help, hopped into his car and drove 6 hours, only to find her comfortably watering her garden moments before his arrival. That day, I felt an uneasy knot tighten in my chest, a mixture of frustration, sympathy, and disbelief. And it wasn't an isolated incident. Another time, she claimed she was dizzy and about to faint. He rushed to her side again, heart pounding with fear. When he got there, she was resting quietly with a mild cold. Always and it went away, or I felt better by the time you came, became her shield against feeling guilty or accountable. I watched as my husband's worry turned slowly into weary resignation. Behind her calls, I sense a deep loneliness, a fear of being forgotten, abandoned. She clings to my husband with a desperate grip, and for him, guarding his mother's dignity and happiness is an unspoken duty. Yet, that duty has become a battlefield where love and frustration collide. She's not just seeking help. She is weaving a net of emotional dependence that pulls him away from his own family again and again. The manipulation, subtle, almost invisible, sputters beneath her requests. It's the kind of manipulation wrapped in fear and need disguised as distress. Like the time she told my husband she had no one else late at night, knowing full well there were neighbors and local services nearby. It was never just about the practical help. It was about being needed, being the center of attention, holding the power to command time and loyalty. For me, watching this unfold, it feels like living under slow but constant siege. My already fragile state during pregnancy is strained not only by health fears, but by the emotional toll of knowing that any emergency call from her could so easily upend everything: my peace, my husband's presence, our safety. I recognize a cycle of pain born from her own vulnerability, but I also can't ignore what it does to us. The anxiety it breeds, the exhaustion it invites, and most of all, the tipping point where concern crosses into control. The conflict is both external and internal. My husband is torn between his instinct to care for his mother and his commitment to protect his wife and unborn child. He loves her, yes, but he also carries an unspoken resentment for the demands that strain him so deeply. And then came the call that would shatter the fragile balance. The urgent, tearful voice claiming chest pain, the threat of a heart attack. But this time, it wasn't a minor inconvenience. It was something irrevocably different. Yet, despite everything we knew about her patterns, her history, the doubts she sowed, our hearts wanted to believe the worst because, between love and logic, love often wins first. But how do you prepare your heart for betrayal wrapped in desperation? How do you untangle yourself when the hand that pulls you close also cuts the deepest? This history of manipulation, dependency, and fractured trust will soon collide with the present crisis, forcing us all to confront painful truths about loyalty, boundaries, and survival. And as the story unfolds, the real question becomes, can love survive when touched by deception? The shrill ring of the phone shattered the fragile calm of that early morning. A sound I had dreaded but knew was inevitable. My husband's mother was crying on the line, her voice trembling with what she claimed were crushing chest pains, a torment no woman should ignore. I watched him, frozen, as his face paled and his usual composure melted into raw panic. The man who had cared for me for months, who had become my rock through every sleepless night and every anxious heartbeat, was suddenly caught between the unthinkable. The woman who birthed him, possibly having a heart attack, and the wife carrying their unborn child, confined to bed with strict orders not to be left alone. His voice shook as he asked her frightening questions. "Did you call 911? Are you sure you don't want an ambulance?" His desperation was palpable, but her refusal to call helped only tighten the noose of indecision around him. I felt my own heart shattering as he impulsively packed a bag, throwing clothes and essentials together in a frenzy. His eyes flickered towards me, hope and guilt wrestling silently inside them. He whispered, "I have to go. She might not make it." And just like that, he was gone, leaving me behind on this bed of fragility and fear. The house felt impossibly empty without him. Our neighbor, an elderly woman with kind eyes, became my lifeline that day, checking in, bringing meals, and lending a comforting presence. But even her warmth couldn't chase away the storm battering my chest. I oscillated between anger and despair. Why would she refuse emergency help? Why stir such terror only to deny the final, critical step? I could remember all the times my mother-in-law had cried wolf, moments of exaggerated illness that drained us emotionally and physically. Could this be another manipulation? A cruel test, or worse, an attempt to fracture our fragile resolve. Meanwhile, my husband was driving those 6 endless hours, battling his own maelstrom of emotions. I imagined him gripping the steering wheel tightly, torn between loyalty and obligation, love and guilt. In his mind, every mile was a heartbeat skipped, every minute a nail hammered into the coffin of his peace. His mother's voice on the phone, pleading, frantic, broken, had to be real. Yet, the memories of her previous cries for help tugged him into suspicion. How do you trust when trust has been fractured? How do you respond to a crisis that might be a lie when the stakes are life and death? The choices he faced were impossible, a classic catch. 22. Go to the woman who raised him, who might truly be dying, or stay with his pregnant wife teetering on the edge of medical disaster. Help his mother first and leave his wife alone, or protect his wife and risk neglecting his mother's distress. His internal battle mirrored the chaos outside. 2 emergencies. 1 man trapped between duty and heartbreak. When he called to assure me he'd tried calling emergency services and urged his mother repeatedly to seek help, I wanted to scream, to beg him to stay, but I knew he was caught in the storm too. The uncertainty clawed at me, the sense of abandonment stinging sharper than any physical pain. And then, silence, hours unfilled with updates, an absence so loud it echoed in my chest. My mind spun stories worse than the truth, and worries spiraled like crashing waves. Behind the scenes, the neighbors and friends stepped in quietly, checking the house, bringing hot meals, offering words of encouragement. Each visit was a reminder that while my husband was away, I was not utterly alone. But despite that, the emotional isolation was suffocating. In these long hours, I cycled through hope and dread, love and resentment, trust and suspicion. All the emotions tangled in a painful knot. Little did I know, the truth that awaited at the end of his journey was not what I had hoped for, and the coming fallout would redefine everything we thought we knew about family, loyalty, and trust. As his car disappeared into the horizon that morning, so too did the naive belief that love alone could protect us when deception lurked in the shadows. The truth doesn't always arrive gently. Sometimes it crashes through your life like a storm, tearing apart the fragile piece you've been desperately clinging to. Hours after my husband left on that frantic 6-hour drive, the silence in our home grew deafening. Each unanswered call sent a fresh wave of panic crashing over me. Alone in my room, I wrestled with 1,000 swirling thoughts. Is she really okay? Why hasn't he called? What if this was all a lie? Driven by desperation and a flicker of suspicion, I called every hospital and clinic near my mother-in-law's home. My voice trembled as I asked receptionists to check their records, patient admissions, emergency visits, any sign of her being there that day. Each no hit me like a punch to the gut. No one had seen her. No ambulance had arrived. No frantic medical records existed. With each negative answer, a bitter realization sank in. This wasn't an accident. This wasn't the midnight crisis. This was something else entirely. The knot in my chest tightened, and the seed of anger sprouted. How dare she fabricate such a serious emergency, knowing my condition? How could she string both of us along, tearing apart the trust we once had? The neighbor who stopped by for a brief visit sensed my distress. She offered kind words and tried to distract me, but even her genuine concern couldn't erase the gnawing frustration and heartbreak. When my husband finally texted, vague and distant, saying, "She's fine," it was likely a false alarm. My anger mixed with relief, twisting into an unfamiliar bitterness. Fine? After risking everything? After leaving me alone on strict medical bed rest with a fragile baby inside me? Later that evening, when he finally called, I heard behind his exhaustion a deeper, broken kind of weariness that only comes from betrayal and disillusionment. His voice carried guilt, frustration, and a storm of conflicting emotions. He confessed that his mother had refused to go to the hospital when he arrived, insisting she was no longer in danger. Instead of hugs and cries, he found a woman talking cheerily about home renovations, paint colors, and furniture choices. As if the morning's terror had dissolved completely into thin air. The words cracked my heart. The person who claimed she might be dying turned out to be planning a living room redo, a trivial concern masking a profound manipulation. My husband's anger finally surfaced in that late-night conversation. His voice was raw when he told me, "She lied. She used that emergency to pull me away from you, from us." Silence swallowed us both for a moment, heavy and suffocating. The disbelief hadn't left me. The betrayal was a jagged wound raw beneath my already fragile state. We talked late into the night, revisiting every detail, every phone call, every doubt. We both grappled with how deep this deception went and what it meant for our trust, our marriage, and our future. The truth felt like both a harsh slap and a grim relief. The nightmare was real, but now we knew. And knowing meant we had to face the unbearable task of rebuilding or breaking apart. Around us, the quiet world of neighbors and friends hummed softly, unaware of the emotional earthquake shaking our home. I glimpsed my husband's exhaustion reflected in their concerned faces and felt connected to a community that, though imperfect, was willing to hold us in this vulnerable hour. But inside, I felt a storm raging, grief for the loss of safety, fury at the betrayal, and a rising determination not to be broken. This was the moment everything changed. From here on, there could be no ignoring boundaries, no sweeping pain under the rug. The fragile balance was shattered. And as painful as it was, it set the stage for confrontation, healing, and the fierce protection of what truly mattered, me and the life growing inside. After the truth broke through the fragile veneer of our lives, nothing was quite the same again. The weight of betrayal settled heavily between us, like an invisible wall that neither time nor words could easily tear down. My husband came home exhausted, not just from the 6-hour drive or sleepless nights, but from an emotional battle that left him drained and quietly furious. The man who once wore his role as a devoted son with pride now wore an unmistakable shadow of disappointment and guarded pain. I saw it in the way he avoided looking at his mother's number on his phone, and how his voice trembled whenever the subject even came close. We sat together quietly at first, two wounded souls bearing the same scar, but processing it differently. I felt the relentless ache of abandonment. How could the woman who promised she would be by my side leave me so vulnerable? How could the man I love be pulled into a web of deceit, torn between duty and love, only to come back more fractured than before? For my husband, the pain was twin-pronged. His love for his mother was deep and rooted, built on years of nurturing and loyalty. Yet this episode cracked open something raw, resentment mixed with helplessness. He openly confessed feelings he never dared express before: anger at being manipulated, shame at being used, and sorrow for the strain it placed on us both. One evening, as the baby kicked softly inside me, we broke the silence with something almost hopeful, a tentative conversation about boundaries. We knew things had to change. The old patterns that allowed manipulation and neglect to creep in had to end, or risk destroying the fragile unity between us. Together, we outlined new rules. No more emergency calls without actual emergencies, insistence on professional help before any trip, and the clear priority of my health and our baby's safety over convenience or guilt. We agreed to seek outside support, like a therapist, who could help him navigate the guilt and set healthy emotional limits with his mother. Our neighbor, Mrs. Thompson, became a quiet but steadfast ally. Over cups of tea and gentle conversations, she reminded me that it was okay to protect myself, and that sometimes love means saying no, even to family. Her presence was a balm to my weary spirit. At the same time, my husband faced his mother's raw emotions, her tears, pleas, and eventual demands for forgiveness. He stood firm but empathetic, explaining how her actions endangered not just me, but the life we were bringing into this world. It was not an easy conversation. It was laced with tension, sorrow, and an uneasy hope for understanding. But healing would take time. For now, the powerful lesson hung in the air: love without boundaries can harm just as much as abandonment. I found strength in our shared resilience. In the wake of betrayal, we chose growth, not just as individuals, but as a team preparing to welcome new life. The nights were still long, the fears still present, but there was a newfound resolve shaping our days. This painful chapter, once raw and chaotic, slowly began to crystallize into something clearer, a roadmap for protecting our family's future. One where trust had to be earned and maintained, and where our well-being was no longer negotiable. As we prepare to face the final weeks of pregnancy, with all the uncertainty it brings, we do so with guarded hearts, wiser, warier, but also deeply intertwined by the trials we have endured. What lies ahead remains unseen, but now we approach it with eyes wide open and hands firmly clasped. In the quiet moments after the storm, when the echo of betrayal still reverberated through the walls of our home, something fragile but undeniable began to take root: hope.
We were broken, yes.
Shattered in places I didn't even know could crack. But within that very fracture, a chance for something new was born. The kind of newness that only emerges through shared pain, through wrestling in the dark until your hands find each other, grasping for light. My husband, worn beyond words by guilt and exhaustion, returned home not just physically drained, but emotionally raw. Yet, in this vulnerable state, The armor he had worn for the sake of his mother melted away. For the first time in a long while, we spoke openly and honestly. No shields, no half-truths, just two souls, scarred but fiercely united. We talked for hours, past midnight, about fears and regrets, about what was lost and what could still be saved. His voice, once quiet and tense, slowly grew steady as we found new ground upon which to rebuild. Sharing the burden, the pain, even the anger, somehow lightened the load. Our neighbor, Mrs. Thompson, who had been a quiet guardian angel through it all, lent a steady presence. Her words were simple but powerful. "You're not alone in this. Families are messy, but love, real love, knows how to heal." Her visits became beacons, tiny islands of normalcy and calm in our turbulent sea. The baby inside me kicked gently as if reminding us both that life is relentless, unstoppable, and that this new life deserved a foundation of strength, not fear. We made plans, not just for the immediate future, but for how we would protect and nurture ourselves and our family. Boundaries with his mother would stay firm but fair. We agreed therapy wasn't a sign of weakness, but a tool for building resilience, for breaking cycles that threaten to repeat. And maybe the hardest truth was accepting that healing takes time. That sometimes love means holding space for pain without judgment. That we couldn't erase the past, but we could chart a course forward, hand in hand. The tension didn't vanish overnight. There were moments of quiet resentment, late-night tears, and whispered doubts. But beneath the surface, the bond we forged in crisis began to deepen, transforming pain into a fierce, protective love. In the shadow of betrayal, we found a stronger light, one born from understanding, forgiveness, and an unspoken promise to put each other and our child first. This chapter is a testament to the power of partnership and a reminder that even in the darkest hours, hope breathes anew when two hearts refuse to break alone. As we prepared for the arrival of our baby, the future seemed uncertain, stretched thin by the scars of recent days, but also brightened by the unshakable truth that together we could face whatever came next. With love as our anchor and lessons learned etched in our hearts, we stepped forward, ready to heal, to grow, and to protect the family we were building, no matter what storms might come. Thank you for joining me on this journey of pain, resilience, and hope. If you found meaning in this story, please share your own experiences or thoughts in the comments below. We want to hear where you're watching from and how you relate. Your voice makes this community stronger. If you enjoyed this story and want to support us, please don't forget to like and share this video with your friends and family. Your support means the world to us. Also, make sure to subscribe to our channel and hit the notification bell so you never miss an emotional story like this one. We'd love to hear from you. Please leave a comment below with your thoughts, experiences, or any suggestions on how we can improve our content. Your feedback helps us grow and bring you even better stories. Thank you so much for being part of our community. We truly appreciate you.